appreciate everybody coming out today. This is great. Miss Mary and Linda, all you ladies that worked on this is pretty awesome. And for a great cause for Chip Carey. I have a couple things I'd like to say about Chip first. As you know, Chip's got a little place in Florida now. Most of you know about that. And I'm going to tell this story on him. And he probably don't want me to tell it, but I'm going to tell it. Last week, he's walking out on the beach. And he was all alone, just reflecting on his years here. And he heard a voice that said, "Pick me up, pick me up." And he looked around, he didn't see anybody all the way up the beach. And he said, "What in the world's going on? Now I'm getting to see now a little bit." And he heard the voice say, "Pick me up." So he looked down, there's a big bullfrog. So Chip picked the frog up, held him up, looked him in the eye, and the frog said, "Now kiss me right in the mouth, and I'll turn into a beautiful bride for you." Chip stuck that frog in his shirt pocket, and the frog's hollering, "Help, let me out, let me out." So he picked the frog out and said, "What's wrong now?" And he said, "You didn't kiss me." And Chip said, "At my age, I'd rather have a talking frog." So anyway, I do want to say, I spent a couple years as a trooper in Hardeman County and some in Fayette and Haywood. And when we come out of the academy, you know, the troopers kept talking about when you get back, what kind of General Sessions judge you're going to have. Because just about every stop that a trooper makes out there could be life and death for him. So it's pretty serious, and when they get in court, they want a General Sessions judge that backs the troopers. And I can honestly say that I love Chip Carey as a General Sessions judge because he took his job serious and he took care of the troopers out here in Hardeman County, and I want to thank him for that. We need a big round of applause for Chip. And I've got a couple things to give to him today. One is the picture that was hanging in the courthouse that's got the date on it. And Judge Carey, you are now my county attorney. And you know what financial shape we're in, so if you'd return this frame, I'd appreciate it. And when you get to come up here, I want to show you what we're going to put in the frame to replace Chip. It's a picture of your new judge, Boyd Denton. You probably don't recognize him, but that's at Hee-Haw this year. But I thought y'all get a kick out of seeing that when you come up here. And then the plaque that reads, "In appreciation to Judge Charles Chip Carey for his 11 years of dedicated service to Hardeman County as a General Sessions Judge, presented this 19th day of September 2014 by his fellow officials, Jimmy Sain, Mayor Sheriff John Doolin, Trustee Mary Powell, Assessor Josh Pulse, Recorder Lily Barnes, Clerk Jerry Armstrong, Highway Superintendent David Sipes, Circuit Court Clerk Linda Fulgham, and Chancery Clerk Janice Bodford." We're all proud of Chip.
I guess when they take the picture down, it means it's official, doesn't it? But I appreciate it. I've enjoyed working with everybody. I'm going to piddle what I said. I'm going to work some part-time. I'm still going to do delinquent taxes and the Board of Education, and then be the county attorney at least until April if I don't have to get a bulletproof vest before then. But I've enjoyed the 42 years that I practiced back here, and I couldn't have done it without all of y'all. I told everybody, I think the first time that I put the robe on and came in, that everybody is of equal importance as far as I was concerned. If you don't have a good bailiff, if you don't have a good clerk, if you don't have good deputy clerks in the court, if you don't have good probation officers, the whole system falls apart. So everybody is no more important than anybody else, and we all have to work together as a team, and I think that's what we accomplished. So I appreciate all of y'all, and then I appreciate the support we've had for the community too, because I think Butch Gatlin told me one time we were having trouble with juvenile gangs and all kinds of things, and Butch came in one day and he said, "You know what they say about us on the street, don't you?" And I said, "No, Butch, what's going on?" He said, "They say we're mean." Well, we drove the gangs. I'm not running for office, so I can say they're still here, but we drove them underground. And they're not as notorious as they once were. We don't have the drive-by shootings. We don't have them wearing their colors out on the street and everything like that. So complimenting Butch for a second with everybody else, when Butch first became our probation officer about 8 years ago, we had roughly 100 kids a month on juvenile probation. The last report he gave me in August, I think he had 27. So that's what's done. So we couldn't have done that without y'all. So it takes the support of a whole community if we're going to turn things around. And luckily, I've had that support. So I appreciate all of y'all. And this is still home, and it'll always be home. And I'm going to be here. Yes, I have a home in another state, but this is where my tags are. It's where I pay my taxes and all. So I'm not going anywhere. So I appreciate all of y'all coming today. Thank you.
Joe Van Dyke still here?
No.
Okay. Since he's not here,
He was leaving. I bet him leaving unless he came back.
this is on behalf of the Hardeman County Bar Association. We wanted to give you a gift, and it's from everybody. It's a gift certificate to Brooks Brothers.
That's very, I can buy some casual clothes now. I told somebody that until County Commission met last Tuesday night, that's the first time I'd had a tie on since the 31st of August. So I'll try to find some casual clothes to wear for a change. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Well, I think,
Chance?
well, Boyd wanted me to come say a few words about my Denton and Cary days. So, all y'all know I worked for Denton and Cary for about 24 years. And how I got the job was Chip's mother was my high school English teacher. And she was the epitome of a Southern lady. Anyway, so I went to work at Denton and Cary. I left a state job. And the first day, Marianne Knuckles, who was the clerk and master, was in court, and she only had one employee, and the employee was sick. So she called Chip, wanted to know if I could come over and answer the phone. So I did. Well, Marion came down from court and had to make a call, and she was on the phone for about 15 or 20 minutes. About that time, the door flew open, and he come running in there like the Tasmanian devil. He thought I was in there just yakety, 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 trying to call. And I thought, what have I got myself into? But anyway, at Denton and Cary, it was a standing joke. We called it door number 1, that was Morris. Door number 2 was Chip, and door number 3 was Boyd. But it was like The Price is Right. When you went in, you never knew what you were going to get. But anybody that knows Chip knows he's punctual. He's going to be on time. He's going to finish on time, or he wants to finish on time. Well, if he missed his lunch hour by 15 minutes, he would just go into a panic. Well, anyway, I was at work one day and the phone rang and I said, Denton and Cary. He said, plain cheeseburger, Joe's. I said, excuse me? Anyway, if he was the least little bit late, we had to go to Joe's and get a plain cheeseburger and have it sitting on his desk when he got back. So, anyway, when Joe's burned, we went into panic mode. But anyway, we got by. But the main thing I wanted to say was, since I became clerk and master, at our clerks' meetings, we had vendors there. And I had a vendor come up and talk to me and ask me, wanted to talk to me about digital recording for the courtroom. And I told him, I said, well, it just so happens that our county's building a new CJC, so I gave him Chip's name and telephone number. So he got in touch with Chip, and as a matter of fact, they ended up buying it from Jody from Business Information Systems. So about 6 months later, I was at another meeting, and Jody came over there, and he said, can I ask you something? I said, yes, sir. He said, does your county realize what an asset you have in Judge Carey? I said, well, I'm going to tell you something. I know all the court officials and all the legal people realize it, but I don't know about John Q. Public. Well, let me tell you, John Q. Public knows. I give him a plain cheeseburger any day.
I didn't know all the rest of that, but a funny part of that was when I first took the bench, I was told later that law enforcement officials were placing bets on what time I would walk into the courtroom. And whoever got it closest to 9 o'clock won the bet. But I did, what I tried to do is, I've had the good fortune to practice in front of a lot of good chancellors and judges. And I tried to learn from every one of them. And I tried to take the good points from every one of them and go forward. And some of the things, all of the things that I did are nothing that I came up with. It's what I learned from good mentors. And so we have, I know we had Judge McGraw here, we've got Chancellor Cole, we've got Chancellor Brassfield, and a good friend of mine, Chancellor Butler, is here. All of them are excellent judges, And they try to do the same thing I do, and that is, remember who you work for. I remember one thing that Herman Revere said one time in court, and Herman Revere used to get mad as mad could be if anybody ever referred to the court as my court. He said, it's not my court, it's the people's court, it's your court. That's what we've always tried to learn. So that's just one example of what we tried to learn and pass on, and I'm sure Boyd's going to do the same thing and be a good judge just like the other judges we have here today. So thank y'all all so much for coming.
I got a few things to say too. I wanted to reflect back too and share some stories with y'all from Denton and Cary days before he went on the bench, and even since he's been on the bench. Janice and I talked about that, and one of the things was he mentioned Judge Revere just then. When he first came to work in Bolivar, he worked with my dad in the early 70s, and they formed the law firm of Denton and Cary. And Judge Revere, when he was on the bench, he saw Morris, my dad, coming in. He said, "Hey, Morris," and Chip was right there with him. He said, "I see you brought your law books with you." He was very, very smart, and it was just like taking the law books with you. He found out early on in Linda Fulton's court, he was a new lawyer in town. He went up and asked her for the list of the jury. He demanded a list of the jurors that were going to be serving the next term. And she let him know right quick. She slammed that counter down and she said, "Would you like to rephrase that?" And he said, "May I please have?" At Denton and Cary, he once hired and fired a girl the same day. Morris never even met her. One girl, she went on vacation. She mailed back her resignation letter and her key to me. Y'all all know how tight Chip is. He's tight as bark on a tree. And we had a phone system that only he understands. AT&T, they don't even understand it. It's some kind of radius of 30 miles, it's at one rate, and 45 miles is another rate, and 60 miles is another rate. We had to look it up on the map before we dialed it. Oh yeah, he's done a good job of keeping his private life pretty private for the most part. But there was one lady friend that he had that when she would call the office if he wasn't available, and especially if Janice answered the phone, she would just blab and blab and blab and tell her everything that was going on, and he thought he was keeping it all to himself. But, that was good information to have. He fell victim to marriage once and only once. That case went all the way to the Tennessee Supreme Court. Now he uses it in his prenuptial agreement. Cary versus Cary. He was in the National Guard, and I always hated that because he was always gone during the summer for 2 weeks. And most of our soldiers and people around here go to Camp Shelby, and he went to Camp Shelby where it's in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. But he would go to Camp Ramada Inn. They would come back with, sunburn and me hot and dirty and all. He'd come back with sunburn, but he was clean, and that was from the pool side. Oh yeah, recently, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but as Jimmy said, he's got a place down in Florida, and to get around down there, if you're one of the locals, you've got usually either a golf cart or a scooter. He bought him a couple of scooters. He's got judicial tags on those scooters.